Oh, look what happened by accident.
Hola, Pablo. How are we all going? It's another episode of Darklighter Does Anything and Everything, where, as the title says, anything and everything can and will happen. We can talk about whatever we want over here on Rumble. Not that I even generally break the how would you call it, the glass ceiling of censorship that much. You know, it's not exactly my style to sort of just go around saying the worst of the worst. But you can say whatever you want, you know. So, and you can also get away with just sort of showing a lot more as well. That's probably like what I like about Rumble. I mean, you can sort of have that freedom to say what you want, but it's also the fact that really you can show whatever you want. You're not sort of being censored the same way that YouTube is for content. So it's got its advantages. So we can watch a bunch of random videos and we can do whatever, you know, without sort of going, oh no, censorship. For now. Until even the Rumble censors come falling down. So, without further ado, let's get into it. What shall we watch today? We'll get my salsa out of the way. Just, oh, look at it. It's got food everywhere. Not everywhere, just one location. Get my my wank toilet paper out. Oh, is that for you used to have a wank? Yeah, just in the living room right here, just when people are walking past. Just, yeah, sorry, you just look away. Anyway, so today sometimes I watch all sorts of different stuff over here. One thing that I was checking out though was, what even was it? Where is it? One thing I did want to talk about was, so there's this, it's a pop culture thing to start with, is so that there's this video game coming out called Assassin's Creed Shadows, which there's been like 1,000,001 Assassin's Creed games since they started them, because they've been pushing those games out, you know, like they're you know, kids at a Chinese hospital. But you know, like a Need for Speed games, those sorts of things, just FIFA or whatever, you know, just, yeah, do one every year, or even more than one. It says the game is the 14th major installment in the Assassin's Creed series. Yeah, major installment. There's other ones where they're like, oh, it's not one of the main ones, but yeah. And even still, 14, it's like, oh, shit, like I think the first one was only on like PS3, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure the first Assassin's Creed was on PS3, like that generation of console. Yeah, 2007. So if you think we're in the year 2014, if you go back sort of 14, you know, there's 14 major installments. That means what's the word in the Assassin's Creed Infinity platform, whatever that is. Let's get this up on screen. So that's not quite one every year, but it's pretty close to it. You know, there's only a few years that they've taken off, not many, you know, where there hasn't been one coming out. And that's because but there's been lesser installments of them coming out. So they've had Assassin's Creed games coming out pretty much every year. But this one is getting a lot of attention because of this guy right here. Now, this guy is Yasuke, is his name. Now, he is a African man that actually existed in real life and died after June 1582. Well, this game, so after that, just all they know is he died sometime after that, or something. 1582. But what happens is that people are getting all up in arms and upset about this, which I can understand why, because they're sort of like Japanese are like, oh, this isn't like history or whatever. Well, the thing is that this guy, Oda Nobunaga, this guy right here, now he met Yasuke, this African guy who was, I think, a like servant or something or other of some sort. Yeah, he served as a samurai to the Japanese daimyo, which is like a feudal lord. That's what they're like, a lord. So not like the king of all of Japan, but they're like a lord of an area, in charge of an area. So as you can see there, daimyo, you've got Oda, so it's probably his area, you know. And so he basically took Yasuke like as not like a servant, but like in a warrior capacity, you know, like you're going to be my bodyguard or one of my bodyguards. And so that's what this guy here did. And he was in charge of that part of Japan. And so he died obviously in 1582, which seems to be around about when the game's set, or maybe it's set just after that. And the Japanese are getting quite up in arms and upset about that. The reason that they are is sort of, there's multitudes of reasons that people are getting upset about this. And there's also another game that I'm going to get into that's kind of a similar thing. That's to do with, like, funny enough, sort of the same point in time. It's a very popular point in time because of just what was going on in Japanese history at that point in time. What was happening in Japan, I should say. So it's not history when it's the present. It's going to become history. And so this guy here basically, took him as a bodyguard, but let's actually look up this guy's death. By 1582, Nobunaga was at the height of his power and as most powerful warlord, the de facto leader of Japan. So he wasn't like, he was in charge of like a certain territory, but he was so sort of big and powerful that he kind of got to rule the other ones. His territory sort of de facto sort of ruled the other ones. So they still all have their own territories, but it's like in Germany, like before Germany, when it was a bunch of different states. Originally, Austria was sort of the big state that like ruled over them, and then that sort of shifted in the 1860s, and it became Prussia that took over. Oda Nobunaga and Tokugawa Ieyasu finally occupied Shinano and Kai province. And Tokugawa Ieyasu, I think he's the guy in the TV show Shogun. Yeah, see, Ieyasu's life and accomplishments were used as a model for the Japanese statesman Lord Yoshi Toranaga, portrayed in James Clavell's historical novel Shogun, the 1980 television series adaptation of the novel Star. Both used Ieyasu as a key reference. So it's a different character name, but he's basically he's in that same point. Instead of that guy existing, instead of this guy, you know, Tokugawa Ieyasu existing, instead, in Shogun, this guy exists instead, Yoshi Toranaga. So different things can happen to him, but he's following the same general path, you know, of history in a loose way. He's sort of hitting the main key points, but different things could happen in between those. And so this guy, Oda Nobunaga, funny, Bitchu province, that's funny. He's like another person who is sort of adjacent to him or whatever. Before he became the emperor of Japan or whatever, that guy in Shogun, or it becomes Shogun, I should say, emperor, Shogun. Same thing, I suppose. Finally occupied Shinano and Kai province, defeating the Takeda at the Battle of Tenmokuzan, destroying the clan and resulting in Takeda Katsuyori fleeing from the battle before committing suicide with his wife. At this point, Nobunaga was preparing to launch invasions. Nobunaga's former sandal bearer. That's funny. Like what he just carries his sandals around. Oh, he's a samurai. Okay, maybe it's just some title. He happens to do that, but he is more. Invaded Nobunaga's former sandal bearer Hashibe Hideyoshi invaded Bitchu province, and laid siege to Takamatsu Castle. The castle was vital to the Mori clan, and losing it would have left Mori's home domain vulnerable. Mori reinforcements led by Mori Teramoto arrived to relieve the siege, prompting Hideyoshi to ask in turn for reinforcements from Nobunaga. Nobunaga immediately ordered his fleeing generals and also Akichi Mitsuhide to prepare their armies, with the overall expedition to be led by Nobunaga. Nobunaga left Azuchi Castle for Honnoji, a temple in Kyoto he frequented when visiting the city, where he was to hold a tea ceremony. Hence, Nobunaga only had 30 pages with him. And when he said page, he's talking about a young servant, while his son Oda Nobutada had brought 2,000 of his cavalrymen. Akichi Mitsuhide, stationed in the Tamba province, led his army toward Kyoto. Under the pretense of following the order of Nobunaga, but as they were crossing Katsura River, I'm starting to do the Japanese lilt on everything, he decided to assassinate Nobunaga for unknown reasons, and the cause of his betrayal is controversial. So this is where I'm starting to get to the point of why I'm referencing this, is that this black guy that they're talking about, who's going to be one of the two main characters, I think. He's not the only main character, but he's the one getting all the attention, because the other main character, I think, is like a Japanese woman, which dovetails into sort of this other not connected game, not in terms of the canon, or not in terms of this actual game series, but there's another game. What is it? Ghosts of Yotei or something, or whatever it's called. There's a game called Ghosts of Tsushima, and it's a sequel to that coming out, and it's like a female who's the main character. And the problem with that more is just who the voiceover actress is, because she says a lot of nasty, hideous stuff about people on, out in public and on the internet, and I guess in interviews and stuff, wherever she gets an opportunity. But it doesn't seem to be that the game itself is necessarily actually causing any controversy itself. It's just, in terms of the content of the game, it's just the voiceover actress is the issue. The game itself, we're yet to find out, but there are one or two other people we're finding out that are involved with making the game, like someone high up in charge of it who's sort of a bit woke. So you never know, but we're not fully sure about that game yet, the Ghost of Tsushima sequel. But this game here, though, the actual, how do I put it? The actual content of the game is kind of the problem that people are more up in arms about. It's nothing to do with actors or actresses, anyone involved with it, as in terms of their own personal opinions. It's just literally the game itself. And so the problem that they're having there is that this guy, this black guy that we're talking about, Yasuke, this dude here, he was served as a samurai to this guy that I'm talking about, leading up to his death, Oda Nobunaga. He was a samurai under this guy. So in this point in time here, he was clearly a samurai of his, but he must have not been here at the time, I'm guessing, when this was going on. In the video game, they might add him in. And this is the thing the Japanese are more getting upset about. Now, I don't know if the Japanese are or are not, because Japan's just full of Japanese people, and that's fine. They want to keep it that way. They don't mind if people move there, but respect the way of Japan. They seem to generally be fine with it, but they're not huge on just having everyone show up and, all come over and just add all your shit to Japan. They're very controlled about how they want to maintain Japanese culture, but they don't mind people moving there as long as you kind of slowly ingrain yourself and respect the way of Japan. So there may or may not be aspects of like the Japanese just not liking the fact that there was a black samurai at all, but it existed. There was a Japanese lord who made that guy one of his samurai. So that happened. That's sort of a confirmed thing in history. You can't deny that this guy Yasuke was that. You can't sort of decline that. It's like, hey, this guy actually became that. That's pretty cool, until Nobunaga's death in the Honnoji incident, which we're getting to. So Mitsuhide, aware that Nobunaga was nearby and unprotected for his tea ceremony, saw an opportunity to act. At that time, Mitsuhide was said to have announced to his troops that the enemy awaits at Honnoji. Oh, that's, saying that. That's the translation. But this is a later creation. In reality, Mitsuhide kept the target of the attack secret from his troops so that information would not leak out. On the 21st of June, 1582, Before dawn, the Akechi army surrounded the Honnoji temple with Nobunaga present, while another unit of Akechi troops was sent to Miyokakuji in a coup, as a Buddhist temple in Sakai, Osaka Prefecture, and one of the head temples of the Nichiren sect. It is known as the location of the 1868 Sakai incident, which is that's some separate thing. Okay, separate place. Although Nobunaga and his servants resisted the unexpected intrusion, they were soon overwhelmed. So they tried to put up a fight, but they got overwhelmed. I wonder, because Nobunaga also fought back for a while before retreating, and after letting the court ladies escape, he committed seppuku in one of the inner rooms. After capturing Honnoji, Mitsuhide attacked Nobutada, the eldest son and heir of Nobunaga, who also died by suicide. Mitsuhide searched for Nobunaga's body but could not find it. As a result, he was unable to prove Nobunaga's death, thus neither providing justification for his rebellion nor gaining support from those who doubted Nobunaga's death. Now, this character, Yasuke, he was a real person in real life, and he served as a samurai to this guy. That's all we know about him, and that's all that's confirmed. Now, this is, I think, where the game is upsetting people, is the dovetailing off from all of this, where they're like, okay, like the game creators have gone, let's take it that like maybe this guy was involved in all these incidents, like for example, in this is a random reference, but in the movie of The Godfather, there's that scene where like Michael Corleone, he's in the restaurant with the Turkish drug guy, and there's like the police commissioner or something, and they're having dinner or whatever, or lunch, whatever you want to call it, and he goes to the toilet, and there's like a gun hidden for him, like behind the cistern of the toilet. And there's a video game that came out years later, like in the 2000s, for The Godfather, and you play as this sort of other character who's sort of very adjacent to the events of the movie. Like your character is the one that puts the horse head in the senator and the Hollywood producer's bed. You go and cut off the horse's head, then go put it in the guy's bed, so he wakes up in the morning with it there. And you're also the person that puts that gun, hides it in the toilet for Michael Corleone. So your character has this through line of like being connected to all these events and sort of helping them happen and so on and so forth. And I think, obviously, The Godfather's a fiction and from the get-go, but I think this is what they're going to. I get the impression that this seems to be what they're going to probably do with Yasuke, and that's where the point of the content of the game is upsetting people, is that this guy was a samurai for that guy, then that was it. Like once that lord was gone, not to say he can't wield a samurai sword or be a warrior anymore at all, but he wasn't a samurai for anyone. And also the dovetailing off point is that like this guy becomes an assassin in the video game. He actually sort of, they stretch this guy's story, which you don't really know about. So you can say, oh, historical liberty, we've done it with a million different people. But they're just treading on very, very sensitive cultural toes, basically, with the Japanese. And it's like, hey, everyone's different about stuff, like Christian people, and that's for a positive and a negative, have let people sort of take the piss out of their religion, whereas like Muslims don't like people taking the piss out of them at all. They get super sensitive about it and will murder people and stuff. Like the Charlie Hebdo magazine in France, they drew it's a French satirical magazine, and here we go. The magazine has been the target of 3 terrorist attacks in 2011, 2015, and 2020. All of them were presumed to be in response to a number of cartoons that it published controversially depicting Muhammad. In the second of these attacks, 12 people were killed, including publishing director Chab and several other prominent cartoonists. So see, like, certain people that you try to take the piss out of or change it, whether it's joking or trying to be respectful, but you're stretching the history or changing things at all, in whatever context or meaning that you're doing it, you upset people. Then it goes to what extent are they going to react in terms of their upset, but you're still upsetting them. And this is obviously to a certain degree upsetting the Japanese. There's a level of upset, there's different levels of upset, but there's definitely a level of upset that they're getting to. Now, I'm not saying that they're going to go and shoot a bunch of people or anything, not at all, like necessarily, but I'm just saying it is on the scale of upset. Now, obviously, the events we were just looking at, that Charlie Hebdo magazine, was about as upset as you can be. You went and murdered a bunch of people that were responsible for that publication, that medium, that sort of product that was put out there. I doubt you're going to have Japanese people killing game developers over Assassin's Creed Shadows. I mean, hopefully not, but I'm just saying, like, there's definitely a level of upset that they are about it because their history's being tinkered around with. And, in a lot of other history, the history of a lot of other places and people, they don't get upset in the same way. And there's positives and negatives about that because, hey, they're at least just proud of their history or proud of their culture or religion or whatever. There's positives and negatives to all those things. Now, this Yasuke guy, though, only seemed, I think, to really be involved in any events or whatever that we can confirm while he was the samurai of this guy, Oda Nobunaga. But as it says here, there are a few historical documents on Yasuke. From the fragmentary accounts, Yasuke first arrived in Japan in the service of, is it a priest? Yeah, a cleric, a religious order of the Jesuits, a religious order of clerics, regular of pontifical right for men in the Catholic Church, headquartered in Rome. Founded in 1540 by Ignatius of Loyola. How do you say that? Loyola. I don't know why that's so hard for me to just to roll that off. I can say a lot bigger words, but the different vowels and syllables you're hitting there just makes it confusing. Jesuit Alessandro Valignano. See, that's easy. That's got a ring to it. Alessandro Valignano. Okay, that's a beautiful name. Nobunaga summoned him out of a desire to see a black man. Subsequently, Nobunaga took him into his service and gave him the name Yasuke. So we're not even sure what his name was before that, necessarily. He was granted a sword, a house, and a stipend. I think that's like money, a fixed sum of money paid for services. Okay. Giving him an income or whatever. Represent payment for work performed. Instead, it represents a payment, like you're just being given money. Like, hey, this is what you get per week or per month or something, Yasuke accompanied Nobunaga until his death and was present at the Honoji incident. So this is where a thing is they confirm he was there. There are no records of his life afterwards. And this is the dovetailing point, is that, okay, so, and I think the game takes place, the majority of the game takes place from that point in time onwards. And I'm going to guess the beginning of the game, the tutorial, the beginning part of it, is the Honoji incident, where either it's the very beginning thing or you're sort of following Oda Nobunaga and doing some stuff for him or whatever, and then that happens. But it'll be the very sort of pretty much beginning of the game. Now, everything afterwards is really where they're content-wise, where they're getting upset about, because they're going, okay, well, we don't know about all this happening and this, that, and the other, and you're just making shit up. And we just don't like you making shit up, using our history as your chalkboard or your piece of paper to paint on or whatever you want to call it, And so, yeah, that seems to be the issue. The name Yasuke was given to him by Nobunaga. His real name, date, and place of birth, native language, and religion are unknown. Now, the thing is, it is quite a cool character to have at a very cool particular point in time to be able to say, hey, we can play around with this, and what could he do, and so on and so forth. One of the problems for me is that, like, normally Assassin's Creed tries to add itself into history and sort of, it can veer and dovetail as long as it sticks to history in a certain way, because you are going back in time to history. But, hey, they all sort of change around a little bit. And this doesn't seem to be really doing anything that different, except it's stepping on the wrong toes. There's a certain amount of historical leeway or, sort of stretching of the truth or playing around with stuff that they do in these types of games, especially Assassin's Creed games. And this one's found like an interesting bit of Play-Doh to sort of stretch and play around with. And I can see why. Like, it actually seems to be like quite a cool sort of stepping off point of, like, there's no record of this guy's life afterwards, but he started here and he's this black guy in Japan. What becomes of him afterwards? And this is where the game sort of then goes into its story, I believe. So, yeah, it's like, that's why they're getting upset. So I can see why it would be cool to do that. And I can also understand why the Japanese people are getting upset about just their history being stretched. There might be also some aspects, as I said, of them just getting upset by the fact that, there's no black people samurai. It's like, well, there was this guy. You can't deny that this guy was a samurai. He was made one by this dude. Then that dude who made him one got killed, and then you never heard of that guy again. It might be because of the fact that Yasuke got killed there. That could be actually what happened. Maybe he escaped or whatever and then just ran away, because he would have stuck out like dog's balls being a black guy in Japan back in the time. So he would have had to, he would have been, if anyone was hunting him, and the Japanese people, whatever, that did that event of killed those people there, it would have been super easy to find him. So he either got killed there, I reckon, in real life, or he escaped it and then fled the hell out of Japan somehow. Unless there was some people in Japan that hid him for the rest of his life. But he's apparently born in somewhere around 1555, as it says here. So you think died after June 1582. They say after June 1582. So when did that happen, though? The 21st of June. So yeah. It's an interesting sort of point in time to play around with. Oh, there was even a TV show, anime, Yasuke. Interesting. But yeah, I can see why both sides would come at it from the point that they come at it from. Now, there's also, but like I say, it's more to do with the content and just the stretching that they don't like. But it's not the first time that people have done this with stuff. And in the West as well, especially, we tend to sort of take, as long as it's presented as such that, hey, this is sort of playing around with history, the way that, say, maybe Quentin Tarantino plays around with history or something. You know what I mean? Like with their, okay, but to whatever degree, maybe they greatly change events, or maybe they sort of just stretch in and out of it and try and say, well, this could have happened or that could have happened. And who did do that thing? We don't know who did that thing. We don't know what happened to them afterwards. And I think that's the direction they're taking with this character in this game. And, hey, as long as the gameplay's good, as long as they're not sort of disrespectful of anyone's culture, like Japanese culture, it's like, hey, you want to have it be realistic in the sense of, okay, you got this black guy who's a samurai in Japan. Let's be realistic about that in terms of what that, means. Give me just a second. I've just got to do something. So, yeah, how do I what am I getting at? Yeah, as long as they, they sort of, it can be handled very much in the right way, and it could still be a good game. You never know. But it seems to be that's where the direction of the criticism is spawning from. Now, as I said, there's another video game that is that is causing some controversy, that's also set in Japan, also in the very similar time. I think it's set like about 20 years after this. What was it? Ghost of Tsushima, which is, I haven't actually played that game, but apparently it's amazing. Came out in 2020. The player controls Jin Sakai, a samurai on a quest to protect Tsushima Island during the first Mongol invasion of Japan. Jin must choose between following the warrior code honorably or by using practical but dishonorable methods of repelling the Mongols with minimal casualties. The game features a large open world which can be explored either on foot or on horseback. So open world game, same as Assassin's Creed. When facing enemies, the player can choose to engage in a direct confrontation using Jin's katana or to use stealth tactics to assassinate opponents. The studio collaborated with Japan's studio and visited Tsushima Island twice to ensure that the game was as culturally and historically authentic as possible. So it seems like this first game was making a solid effort to be respectful and do everything as right as it can within the terms of telling this fictional story, but trying to set it as much in history as possible. Now, this game apparently got good reviews. I never heard anyone speak great things about it. That's the name of the sequel. Oh, there's a film and adaptation in development. Ghost of Yotei. It is the sequel to the 2020 game Ghost of Tsushima, though it does not follow the first game's story. I think I mean follow in terms of like it's not a sequel to the story of the first game. It just happens to be the sequel to the first game, but it's another story in Japan, but a different thing. Because it said, when was that set? First Mongol invasion. See, that's quite a bit earlier. 1274 to 1281, so that's a few hundred years earlier. Whereas this game, the story is set in 1603 in Hokkaido, Japan. Which island is Hokkaido? Was that the main one? The second largest island of Japan and comprises the largest and northernmost prefecture, making up its own region. Okay, so it's not where like Tokyo is. I think Tokyo's down there or something, I think. Oh yeah, with the Ainu, yeah. You hear about them a lot now, people trying to sort of go on about the original Japanese were black. It's like, no, there were these people up north that were darker skinned that were the Ainu. Like they're not all Japanese people. Players will take control of, but see, it's set in 1603, so that's also around the time period of the like Shogun, the TV show. I think Shogun's literally set in, I think, the year 1600, something like that. But they're going to do a few more seasons of it, so they'll end up dovetailing into these years. Very popular years for history to play around with in Japan. Same as like the Wild West era, sort of the 1850s to 1890s, I suppose, in overall in American history. But this is set in 1603, which is like what was it, about 20 years? If the Assassin's Creed Shadows game sticks to like the 1580s, that what do you call it? Event was 1582. So this is like 21 years after that, but it's within a fairly similar amount of time. Obviously, two different game franchises though, so there's not like this character crisscrossing or anything. Players will take control of Atsu, a female Ronin who adopts the persona of the Ghost. Atsu will be portrayed by Erika Ishii. Now, she is a big point of contention. Developers have claimed that players will have more control over Atsu's narrative and choices compared to Ghost of Tsushima. Ghost of Yotei's setting was inspired by Sucker Punch Productions' multiple visits to northern Japan. Creative director Jason Connell was struck by the beauty of Mount Yotei, staring at it for hours. Apparently Mount Yotei, the mountain of that, it didn't have that name back in at that time though, so calling it that is kind of a point of contention as well, because that name wasn't being used back then. It's sort of a retroactive name of like nowadays, or for the last couple of 100 years or something or other, we've called it that. The Japanese have called it that, but back in 1600s it wasn't necessarily called that. The development team recorded nature sounds at Shirotoko National Park. Creative director Nate Fox wanted a sequel to Ghost of Tsushima to maintain its core elements, transporting the player to the romance and beauty of feudal Japan. So it seems like they want to follow it to the same, like, general, and there's a loose, vague sort of talking here throughout this development stuff here about wanting to follow it what the first game was, but they don't seem that, at least at the moment, they're not listing like, hey, we did this and that and we're exactly whatever, following it to the same degree. But there's some of that, so they just might not be talking about all of it right now or mentioning all of it on this page right now, but there's some of that definitely there, of trying to remain to the supposed authenticity of that first game, Ghost of Tsushima. But Ghosts of Yotei has a female Ronin, which I think is a Onimusha, is a term referring to female warriors in pre-modern Japan who are members of the Bushi class. Now this is, let's ask ChatGPT this. In ancient, because the AI knows everything. We go to the AI for all the answers, don't we? In ancient Japan, was there such a thing as a female Ronin? In ancient Japan, the term Ronin generally referred to a masterless samurai, a warrior who had lost their lord due to death, disgrace, or the dissolution of their master's house. Historically, Ronin were typically male, as samurai culture was overwhelmingly male-dominated. However, there were female samurai known as onebugesha, women trained in the martial arts and warfare who could take up arms in defense of their clan, home, or honor. While there is no direct evidence of female Ronin the way that male Ronin existed, wandering unemployed warriors, it is not impossible that some Onibugosha found themselves without a lord or master in times of upheaval, such as during the Sengoku period or in the aftermath of wars. These women may have lived independently or fought in defense of their families, but were not referred to as Ronin. So that sort of the thing there, could have notable female warriors like Tomo Gozen and Nakano Takiko are examples of women who lived by the Bushido code, though they were not considered Ronin specifically. So they sort of were Ronin, you know. The thing is, though, this guy here, or is it? Sorry, this guy. This character is stretching the truth like a lot more than the Yasuke guy in Assassin's Creed Shadows is. Could exist, definitely. Not saying that it couldn't whatsoever at all, but we're stretching the truth a lot more with this female samurai thing. And also, I think, as I said, there's a second character in Assassin's Creed Shadows that they're not really talking about much, who I think you can also play as. I think you play just as much. I think it's like just you can pick between these characters, to my understanding, at the moment. And she might be like this as well. We're like, well, she's a female samurai or Ronin or whatever, you know. So this game, Ghost of Yotei, happens to have just a female Ronin samurai kind of character. But it's the amount that they're stretching it. Okay, but like it could happen. It's not totally out of the realm of possibility. It could happen. It's like a lot of the time in movies where they're like, oh, you shoot the gas tank of the car and it blows up. It's like, oh, it generally doesn't happen, but there's that 1 in a million chance maybe it does, you know. Oh, well, if it could happen 1 in a million, well, this time it did. In our movie, that was when the 1 in a million time happened. You know, that's what a lot of movies and stories predicate themselves upon, is that 1 in a million or 1 in 1,000 or 1 in whatever chances with what the movie happened to capture or what the story happened to have take place in it for the sake of drama and, you know, suspense. But the big thing with this video game, though, Ghost of Yotei, is an issue that we've seen before, where it's not as much necessarily the game itself, really, or the medium, the media, the thing, the product itself, because there's nothing totally out of the bounds where you're like, hang on, this is totally getting crazy, at least from the general thing of it. Like, yeah, this could all happen, could happen. It's this person here, Erika Ishii. Now, this chick here is like a very, very woke person. And so she goes around saying a lot of sort of stuff, you know, like sort of a lot of toxic, sort of corrosive stuff. Apparently she's in The Last of Us too, which is quite funny because I've been using that as a reference point. Who was she in The Last of Us 2? But she was a female changed character in Mortal Kombat 1. She's in Dragon Age The Veilguard, which is a very woke game that's getting a lot of shit for like woke stuff in it, like sort of chest scars and stuff. So it's funny that she's in that, you know, she's, you know, just, there's a lot of, where there's smoke, there's fire, you know. It said something about The Last of Us 2. Would ultimately contribute voice work to The Last of Us Part 2. Okay, well, yeah, what did she contribute? Oh shit, 2020, is that one? Additional voices. Okay, so no one special in particular, just other characters. She does other characters that are, you know, henchman type characters or whatever that show up in it. But this chick here shows up in a lot of, like, she said a lot of woke stuff, really sort of hate, you know, man hating. I haven't fully gotten into it, but I've seen some stuff, and she's definitely very negative, sort of spiteful, got a lot of hate going on. Don't know why, don't really give a shit. People start talking like that, I just tune out. Fuck off, go away, you know, not interested in you. Now, the thing about it is that people like this, they get involved with a project like this, and what it does is it discredits the project. Now, there's a couple of examples I want to give. So there's a movie called All the Money in the World that I actually haven't even seen, so I can't say good or nay about it. The movie is really nothing to do with it specifically. What I'm talking about the movie for is the fact that it was like the movie that was like, it was like the sort of last movie or whatever the hell that like basically Kevin Spacey had sort of done before all the allegations and all the stuff about him, controversies and this, that, and the other came out. He had filmed the whole movie. And the thing is he was playing like a real life guy who was like an old, in the time that the story takes place in, he's an old man. He's not like, he wasn't just meant to be like the age that Kevin Spacey roughly was at the time that he did the movie. He was actually an old man. So Kevin Spacey actually had to do, recasting of J. Paul Getty. That was his character. See there, that's Kevin Spacey as that guy. And so he did old man makeup and played an old man. So you'd say like, oh, wow, he's doing, and this is a funny thing of like, that I remember mentioning separately about this name was, was that like Kevin Spacey, you'd go, oh, what such great acting, because he's having to act as an old guy, and then all the controversy came out before the movie came out, and they went and reshot all of like the Kevin Spacey stuff with Christopher Plummer, this actor here, who subsequently passed away. He died in, February 5th, 2021. He was a great actor. I love seeing him show up and stuff. He was a really good actor. I think he was, if I remember correctly, I think he was, let's have a look. I'm pretty sure he played Duke Wellington in the movie Waterloo. Yeah, there we go. Arthur Wellesley, the first Duke of Wellington in the movie Waterloo. It's a great movie to check out as well if no one's ever seen that before. Waterloo probably got the biggest like live like people on set battle scenes ever filmed, because they used like the Russian army, and like they had these huge armies of people to film the scenes, because obviously it came out in 1970. There was no CGI or nothing back then, so it was all real. That was just it's epic, the level of this film. So it's well worth it. Lord Foppington, that's kind of a funny name, Foppington. So this guy though took over, and now he was obviously he was born in 1929. So what age was he when he passed away? 91. So he was about 90, whatever, when this movie came out. So he didn't need to do old man makeup or anything. He just was that, it was an old man age. So he just had to act as the part. So it's still acting. I'm not trying to deny that. But like, Kevin Spacey had to really sort of get into the character, because it was like, it's a lot less like him. He has to imbue a lot more qualities that aren't as natural to him, at least at that age that he was doing it. So the reason that they changed this was because of the controversy that came out about Kevin Spacey. And why would they do such a thing? It's because they don't want to be associated with that controversy. Now, this is quite funny, because this was sexual, whatever controversy stuff. So this is quite a big, clear-cut case of, no, don't want to be involved with that. It was a very strong case of, a strong thing that it was very strong controversy. So it's quite a clear-cut case of don't want to be involved with that. Now, with old Erika Ishii, she's a lot like a sort of a Brie Larson type person, with, say, Captain Marvel, the movie. The first, there's the movie The Marvels, which is the second one, and that sort of we'll get to that as why that is what that is, especially. But she's a very sort of one of these type of people where Brie Larson was saying a lot of stuff that was very sort of negative and sort of like man-hatey sort of stuff. And she would try and say, oh, I'm coming at it from a place of just empowering women, but her way of trying to empower women, supposedly empower women, because it's like in the 2010s, the 2020s, like you don't need to empower women. We're all up there. We're all doing good. We're all fine. Get on with it and just make a good movie, tell a good story. That's all you need to do. You're not leading the way. You're not helping a woman get the right to vote or achieve, get to some level of equality that you weren't at before. It's all been done. 100% achievements unlocked on Steam for women. We're there. or you're there, I'm not one. Maybe I identify, So the thing is that I would equate this chick, Erika Ishii, more to one of these, where she's saying a lot of stuff that's controversial, but it's not enough. It's not such a strong, like insanely strong piece of controversy from their personal life that's making the studio or whoever, the game creator, the film studio, go, get rid of them. Now, also, Captain Marvel is like Brie Larson's the main character. She was Captain Marvel, so it's harder to kind of replace her. Not that it can't be done, but there's a lot more involved. She was saying a lot of stuff, Brie Larson was, about, oh, this isn't made for you, and this, that, and the other, and just stuff that was like, oh, fuck her, and maybe I won't go see this movie. Now, Captain Marvel was very lucky as a movie, because Marvel, the MCU, Marvel and all that, hadn't really gotten into the woke stuff yet. They hadn't really gone down that rabbit hole quite. It was only really after this movie, after Avengers Endgame, that they sort of dived off the highest diving board that you could possibly do, like at the very end of Avengers Endgame, moving kind of forwards. They just took a nosedive off the highest diving board in the bloody the gymnasium, the swimming complex, into the deepest part of the swimming pool. But this movie was sort of the beginning of that. So there wasn't like any bad faith built up against Marvel Studios with their content about woke stuff. So this was like the first time. This was the first gamble, I would call it. Now, that why I call it a gamble in the sense of, because you're saying, oh, we've got this person who's the star of this movie saying all this stuff and causing all this controversy, but we're going to stick with them. Other things have subsequently happened, like Ezra Miller in The Flash, but they had to stick with that because he's the lead character. They're forced into it a bit because he's the lead character, or she's the lead character in this. But they also had Amber Heard in Aquaman, where like in the second one, they sort of cut her the hell out, like as much as they kind of could, and did a lot of reshoots. She was in the original movie a lot more, but they cut her part down to as little as possible. They didn't get rid of her, but they cut her down to as little as possible. But when it's the main character, it's tougher, and you go, shit, what are we going to do? Okay, well, we'll just, maybe we'll just bear with it and just see how it turns out. Now, the movie itself of Captain Marvel, it's not the most amazing superhero movie ever. It's not the worst. And I actually went and saw it like 3 times at the movies, I'm being honest. And I'm not a fan of woke stuff, none of that shit. But the thing is that this movie actually didn't have any of that in it. It was literally just a story of like, I get knocked down, I get back up again, which is funny, the 1990s of it all, the Chumbawamba reference, which isn't even in the movie, but I think it would have been a good, a good bit of music to add in, to sort of juxtapose to it. You're seeing 1995. Got my lip there. Anyway. But yeah, it was just that. There's literally like one time that she sort of referenced as being a woman at all. And that's like when she crash lands on Earth and she's trying to figure out, like, remember, hang on, I'm from here, I think, or I'm having flashbacks here of stuff. Like, have I been here before, or what's going on here? And she goes to like this bar and she's sort of walking around the bar, has some flashback or whatever. And there's like a male fighter pilot, because it turns out she was a fighter pilot. There's a male fighter pilot who goes, oh, they call it a cockpit for a reason. And I think she punches him or something back in the flashback. And that's like the one time that they reference any sort of stuff. And there's no sort of content in it of woman going, oh, men, and there's no men really going, oh, woman. There's just that one instance. Other than that, it's just literally, as I say, a case of, oh, I get knocked down, but I get back up again. I'm going to keep moving forwards and you're not going to hold me back. That's all the story is about. But the way that Brie Larson was going on, you would think that this was some real sort of toxic, corrosive piece of like, fuck men, political messaging shit. Subsequently, the MCU definitely got into stuff like that, of fuck white people or fuck men, or maybe fuck both of them at the same time. We're going to be like a Hydra and just bite multiple heads at once. Bite multiple things. Has multiple heads, bites multiple things. I suppose Hydras could bite people multiple heads at once. It just depends what part of the body they bite. Anyway, the thing is that this movie was very lucky to land where it landed for 2 reasons. As I said, firstly, because of the fact that it was gambling. Like, it was the first time that Marvel was gambling with any of this sort of stuff, or one of their stars being involved with any of this sort of woke stuff and causing controversy with audience members that may or may not go see it as a result, buy the game, watch the movie, depending on what the product is. In this case, it's a movie. But it was really their first time with this stuff. They've had that a lot since, but this is their first. So it was their first gamble. So it wasn't like they had a lot of bad faith built up there. Hey, you've been doing this a lot. Nah, go away. People have since tapped out, as I have too. But back then they had not. And this is only 2019 when this movie came out. So, and the second reason is that this movie came out. This was one of 2 movies, I believe, I think they came out. No, 2018. Okay, before. So this was the one movie that came out between Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame. So this movie was in it, and it also came out, I think, like a month before Endgame. Now, the thing is, February 27th, 2019. So it came out like probably 2 months before. Actually, no, probably like, a month or 2 months before. I think 2 months. So it had literally sort of a perfect window, an opportunity of, like, it was sort of near impossible for it to fail. And as a result, go past it, the movie made over $1 billion at the box office. But it was quite clearly obvious that Brie Larson had no responsibility in this box office of it, though. That none of that was attributed to her. It was attributed to the franchise itself. Truthfully, like, honestly, like, it was attributed to the franchise itself and the and especially where it was landing in the franchise and so on and so forth. And also, as I say, there was no bad faith really built up yet. And the actual content itself, the actual final product, wasn't a woke product. But they would get there. Like, as with the sequel, The Marvels, which had been a bunch of woke stuff since then. This came out last year in 2023. And there's been a bunch of TV shows, She-Hulk and all this stuff, that have all done their different angle of woke stuff. And, hey, it's that and the other. And like, oh, fuck off. And it's just been shit storytelling and special effects and stuff, because they haven't cared about actually making a good piece of entertainment. They just wanted to put out a political message. And as a result, you get something like this, where the budget was about somewhere between 274 million, and the box office was 206 million. Now, the movies tend to have to make about double their budget to break even, because 100% of the box office doesn't go back to the film studio. The movie theaters get their money out of that box office. So it has to make about double to break even. And then there's also the marketing budget. So it has to make it probably would have to make about $500 million to break even. So it didn't get even close to half of what it was supposed to make to break even. So this movie lost a lot of money. It lost at least a couple, probably $200-300 million. Probably say 300 million. Definitely 250, maybe 300 million. Now, the thing is that this movie came as a sequel to Captain Marvel, and it's like, oh, Brie Larson again, and then it had, oh, well, you've got other woke stuff from the other, you got woke stuff from the other woke stuff, or the whatever, and there's a lot of bad faith basically built up since then in these like 4 years from 2019 to 2023. A bunch of different projects that Marvel Studios have done, and people are just like, and there's other studios and people doing woke stuff as well, and it's just all adding up to this general bad faith sort of tolerance, like how much people can tolerate that shit. And then there's also the fact that this studio specifically has been doing so much that it's like, fuck, don't care, nah. And also because of the fact that it's not between any big Avengers movies that people really do want to see, and like, oh, okay, well, I'll watch this one just to see, because that's what I was like back then, this way that so many other people were. I'll watch Captain Marvel so I know I'm up to date with the story for when Avengers Endgame comes along for the larger universe. But then they lost that. They thought that people would just always stay tuned into that. They lost that because people don't care now. Like, people are like, nah, I don't give a shit now. The individual products are so bad, I don't want to watch it just for the sake of being up to date with the larger story. So the Marvels suffered as a result because of all this bad faith that they built up. And then the Marvels itself wasn't even that great of a movie itself. It wasn't like, oh, it was just bad faith, but the movie was great. No, it actually was a worse film. Like Captain, I've watched a good chunk of it, not the whole entire thing, but like most of it, and it's not as good. I don't know if that's the worst superhero movie ever, but it's nothing great at all. It's definitely nothing great at all, and it just it's like it didn't do itself any favors. Disney, Marvel Studios didn't do themselves any favors. They built up a lot of bad faith. Now, this chick here, getting back to it all, the Japanese Ghost of Tsushima, Assassin's Creed Shadows. We went on a rabbit hole there, but we're sticking with it. She, I would say, is like the Brie Larson, Captain Marvel sort of era of actressy person. But in this, it's not even as much as that. But I say that in a certain way, but not as much, because Captain Marvel was the 21st film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And now, prior to this, Marvel had done, Iron Man 1, The Incredible Hulk, Iron Man 2, Thor, Captain America First Avenger, Avengers 1, Iron Man 3, Thor 2, The Dark World, Captain America 2, The Winter Soldier, Guardians of the Galaxy, Avengers 2, Age of Ultron, Ant-Man 1, Captain America 3, Civil War, Doctor Strange 1, Guardians of the Galaxy 2, Spider-Man Homecoming, that's the first Tom Holland one, Thor 3, Ragnarok, Black Panther 1, Avengers Infinity War. Oh, so it did come out, Ant-Man and the Wasp did come out between them. It just came out in 2018. So there was 2 movies that came out between them, and Captain Marvel, obviously was beneficial to that. Avengers Endgame. And then Spider-Man Far From Home is the first movie. This one here is the first movie after Avengers Endgame. So it's like, that whole Infinity Saga is over now. It's counted in the Infinity Saga, but it's sort of the post-credits movie of it, almost, you could say. Now, at this point in time, when Captain Marvel came out, all the movies before this, all of the stuff here before that, none of that had built up any bad faith with the audience in terms of, fuck them. They've got that person who's always saying this shit, or the content's trying to feed me political messaging. None of that was going on. Even Black Panther wasn't doing that. It was just, hey, it's just a movie that happens to be about African superhero guy. That's all it was. It wasn't the greatest movie ever, but I went and saw it in the movies. I was like, it's okay. I've only probably watched it, I think, once afterwards, I think at home. I'm pretty sure, I think. Black Panther 2 sucked. It's kind of hard. Like, they needed to sort of move on a bit more from it than what they did. They stagnated a bit with that movie, and it wasn't as good as the first one. I was hoping, like, there was definitely stuff in the first one that they could have improved upon. Sadly, the lead actor passed away. That was no fault of anyone. It was just he had cancer or something and was dying. But hey, he actually seemed pretty cool in that role. I liked him in that, Chadwick Boseman. God bless him. But there was no bad faith built up of, they're trying to tell me this, or the person in the thing is telling me this. Brie Larson was kind of the first one out of the gate for Marvel Studios to be doing this shit. So there was no bad faith. So going into Captain Marvel, and the fact it was between Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame, it was like, okay, wow. Especially the fact that it seemed to be that, like, because at the end of Avengers Infinity War, Samuel L. Jackson, just before he disappears, he gets the pager out and contacts Captain Marvel. So you think, okay, well, we should watch the Captain Marvel movie because she's going to tie into Avengers Endgame. So there was a lot of reason to go see her movie. But there was a lot prior to it. They'd built up a lot of good faith, a shit ton of it. If Captain Marvel was the 21st film, there were roughly 20 movies of good faith built up. So they could they were in a really strong position to gamble. And it was only a little gamble. The actual product was good and wasn't woke, but it was just, hey, the person who's the star is sort of saying some shit in interviews and on her own time that is getting some of the audience upset. But it still managed to strike the landing, successfully. Now, Erika Ishii, she's doing the voice of the main character in Ghost of Yotei. I get it. Some little bug. The thing is, though, Ghost of Tsushima, so that's why I say it's funny that she was involved with Last of Us 2, because that's a reference point that I'm going to strike at in regards to this. Ghost of Yotei is what's now a franchise, Ghost series, but there's only one game before that, Ghost of Tsushima. it's a really great, amazing game that people love and say, oh my God, it's one of the greatest games of all time, super amazing, I can love it. Oh, it's amazing, awesome, yada, yada, so authentic and true and great gameplay and this, that, and the other. But it's just one game. It's just one product. And then the second product, now you've gone to this realm of dog shit, you know? And so The Last of Us went on a similar journey where the first one had nothing but sort of praise about it, basically. This game here just had nothing but praise to say about it. But the thing is, I'm going to get this fucker. I've got the fly spray here. Let's get it. So, back to it. After murdering some flying insectoids. This game here, The Last of Us, amazing reviews, great gameplay, loved it. Like, everyone was just universally like, this is one of the best games fucking made ever. Then the sequel came along. And it wasn't because of actors or anyone in particular involved, like voiceover actor-y people at all. It was just the fact with what they did with the story. And there was sort of woke elements that started to seep into it and the direction they took. A certain amount of woke elements in it, not a huge amount, but just a certain amount of wokey stuff going in it. And also the, especially the, just the direction that the story took. People were just like, fuck off. You had one thing of good faith and now you've shat on that with this game. And The Last of Us 2 has really great gameplay. But even I was like, when the game first came out, I was like, fuck, they did what with the story? Fuck them, wankers. I played it eventually and I was like, yeah, okay, I love the gameplay, but yeah, the story is what the story is. It's those people chose to tell that story ultimately. So it is what it is. But that's what happens. You've created bad faith now with the audience where going into, say, The Last of Us 3, do I really want to bother with it? There'll be some people that will. I'm probably still check it out maybe. But like, I haven't even bought a PlayStation 5. I had a PS4. I still haven't gotten PS5. I've had every other PlayStation. I was born in 1989, so I was of that prime age. Like, I was like 5, 6 years old when PlayStation 1 came out. I think it was like 5 when it came out. It was maybe 6 when we actually got one. So I was primo age for like that console especially as a franchise of consoles moving forwards into the next generations of them. And The Last of Us is a Sony game, like very specifically like tethered to the PlayStation platform. But moving forwards, they now have a win, a good faith, and a bad faith, as The Last of Us does. And so Last of Us 3 has its money cut out for it, like in terms, its work cut out for it in terms of hey, do we want to? Like, they've got a win and a loss on the scoreboard here. I don't know, Whereas beforehand, when it was just the first one, nothing but praise. That's as a property, as an IP, it was nothing but praise. Whereas now, there's a win and a lot. There's a win and a sort of a. I don't think necessarily The Last of Us 2 lost money that I'm aware of. Sold over 4 million copies worldwide in its release weekend. But the thing is that, they've sort of seemed to do all right because it had the good faith, as I said with Captain Marvel, it had the good faith of that first one. But now going into the third one, they've got their work cut out for them because of, hey, hang on, the second one went the way it did. And I bought into it and bought the game because, I like the first one. I love the first one, but I thought I'd give it a chance. But now you've sort of done that. But it's one thing of bad faith. So people still might go on and play the third one because, well, it's one strike, but, I haven't totally written you off, but there is that. Now, this is where I relate this back to what's her name? Erika Ishii. Ghosts of Yotei is the second game of this, what now is franchise. So, and obviously we've got the general build-up as well of woke stuff and the bad faith of, oh, is woke stuff? Nah. So just the generality of like, is woke stuff going on or whatever, this person's attached or that's going on? Oh, fuck, nah. My tolerance has already been chewed up so much by this shit. Just not involved, don't want to be involved with it. That's where people are at with this stuff, and I don't blame them. Because they're just like, nah, fool me one time, shame on me. Fool me 412 times, shame on me. Shame on you, shame on me. Had enough of it and tapped out. Don't care. And so Ghosts of Yotei sort of has its work cut out for it because it's the general tolerance, like lack of like tolerance that now exists in the audience for this stuff because it's been taken advantage of. We'll just play this game to keep up with the larger story of the universe, or we'll watch this movie or this TV show to keep up with the larger story of the cinematic universe of the franchise or the whatever the fuck. But there's just that general thing of it, and then there's each franchise's individual. Oh, well, DC has I have a particular DC tolerance. I've got a particular Marvel tolerance, a particular Star Wars tolerance, and for like a lot of Marvel and sort of Star Wars stuff, people are just tapped the fuck out. DC people aren't totally tapped out because DC hasn't failed or flopped in the same way of like going total woke in the same sense. They've had duds here and there, but they haven't sort of totally shat the bed, and especially for a consistent number of just day after day, you just put a new set of bed sheets on and Disney just kept shitting on them, whether it was Marvel or Star Wars. Disney just kept doing big fucking bucket loads of diarrhea all over the new bed sheets. DC has just had that occasion, that one, mate, there was a bed shitter there with Amber Heard and Aquaman, a literal bed shitter. Funny, I wasn't even thinking of that reference totally when I started saying it. And then I was like, hang on, this can go somewhere. It all comes back, And so there's the general build-up, though, in the public of just people's tolerance for this shit now if they find out that anything like that's involved with it. And so the game itself, the product itself might be great, but there's still just the fact that, fucking what? What's going on? It's got who in it? They're doing what? It's been made by who? Goodbye. Auf Wiedersehen, Or Auf Wiedersehen means to see you again, but like means, I don't want to see you again. So this game has its work cut out for it because there's only one bit of good faith that this franchise IP has, and it's got this stuff going on with it. So, yeah, what? It's and then there's a bunch of people I see on YouTube who are sort of or on X and YouTube, all that sort of stuff, who are like YouTubers and so on and so forth, pop culture commentators, who are getting critical about it. And it's like, well, what do you expect? They're actually getting critical of the people criticizing it. Like, what are you talking about? Why would you be doing that? It's like, hey, what are you talking about? Like, people have gotten upset with this shit over the past 10 plus years, 10, 15 years of this shit, especially the last 10 years. Like, fuck off. Like, what are you talking about, acting as if like this is the first thought? Like, no, they're not just getting upset because it's a woman. They're getting upset because of all the woke shit attached to it. So it's like they've just got no tolerance for that stuff anymore. And this idiot here just goes around saying a lot of that shit, trans rights and this, that, and the other and stuff. And just like people are like, fuck off, get away from me. I don't want to be involved with all your, that you're not able to handle reality and you live in a fantasy world. And you're like, I think this can happen and that can happen. And it's like, not interested, go away, And that's where people are at with it. And I don't blame them because it's like, yeah, fair enough. Fair enough that you're at the point where you're at, audience, that you've had enough of this shit. And so that is a very particular sort of Japanese end of the 1500s, beginning of the 1600s sort of, modern day stuff being attached to it, sort of pop culture thing going on right now. Yeah, there we go. So that's the other character, Naoi. However you say it, Naoi, a female shinobi, and Yasuke, an African samurai, an infiltration agent. So she's more of a ninja-y person, I think. Whereas in that Ghosts of Yotei game, I think she's meant to just be more a samurai out in the open, which is what Yasuke is more like. But it's Assassin's Creed, so aren't they assassins, So she's definitely assassin-y, but like, is he really? He just seems to be a samurai. Which is also the thing that, yeah, in real life he was a samurai, but are you saying, he becomes an assassin afterwards and we're now just dovetailing into a totally different job type that he's doing? It's like saying, oh, there was this guy that was a Navy SEAL in real life, but we're just going to say that after it, we're just going to make up the story that he became a mercenary. You know? I said, well, that wasn't the truth, but we know more about people who are Navy SEALs because they exist closer in time to us, and there are greater methods of preservation of recording information, you know. Whereas they don't even know what that guy Yasuke's real name was. So yeah, it's an interesting bit of stuff going on. Now let's have a look at the trailers for these as well and see what we can see in them in regards to stuff to be controversial about. Official world premiere trailer, world trailer. Okay, so there's a couple of trailers out for that game now. I think I might have watched the first.
Who are you? Who do you serve?
I'm guessing this is the female character.
All I have ever known in my life, our land, our customs, my family, burns in the name of unification.
You are still a frog in a well who knows nothing of the sea. The ocean's filled with new ships, but they all come from the same river. Greed.
So that's Oda Nobunaga, I'm guessing.
Power. Vengeance.
So that's him there. That's Yasuke. He's he was a samurai, so hey, that could happen. That's him being a samurai on the battlefield. Yep.
Will you continue
That's
down
not
that
out of
river?
order, necessarily, you know.
Or choose another path beyond what we see?
And we must look for it together.
And now this is after those events that we know about, what he historically was involved in, and this is, I guess, now in total.
We must
action,
learn to trust,
you know,
rebuild.
which is why, like, hey, look, they can see it and go,
follow
hey,
the
black
blade.
guy. Like, people are after him. They go, yeah, there was the black guy, this one black guy out of all black guys in Japan. There he is. You know, I feel like it's together. Only a little chick, but she does seem to be owning a lot of big guys, which is a typical sort of fictional thing. That's definitely a thing you see in a lot of modern stuff now. Like I think Iron Man 2, I remember being the starting point of that. Funnily enough, Scarlett Johansson going that hallway near the end and taking out about a dozen guys just with her tiny frame, and it's like one of those guys would have smashed you into the wall, lady. You could have beaten up one of those guys or whatever, but like 12 of those guys would have owned you. They would have ripped you apart. They would have each just grabbed a different limb and just gone rip, you know, just like. So it's video game, whatever, but it's just like, it's just totally unrealistic because it's like she's just meant to be a regular person. She doesn't have superpowers. So Scarlett Johansson in that, and also this chick in this, like she's not a superhero. She's just a regular person. She's got training or whatever, but yeah, you're still just a person. I can understand her being like a ninja and attacking people in that way, but you're like, no, you're having her sort of just like do the Scarlett Johansson hallway fight where she's just this unstoppable killing machine that's just, yeah, she'd get pummeled. You know, she could beat up a certain amount or one or two or something, but she'd have to really fight him in hardcore, and she might take a hiding at the same time. Like Charlize Theron in Atomic Blonde is a good example of that, where she actually, there's this fight scene near the end where they make it all like one shot, or make it seem like it's one shot, goes into this building, fights these guys up the stairs, then fights these other guys in this room and gets the shit kicked out of it, but wins because she just keeps moving forwards. Then they escape out of the room and go into a car chase. But there's that, in that fight scene part of it, it's the fact that she just keeps moving forwards. Her determination, her persistence is what helps her win, because she's got training, but you also need persistence. And in this stuff, they just never have the woman getting the shit kicked out of it. It's like just totally unrealistic. Like you would take a hiding. It's only men that they sort of want to allow to show getting beaten up.
I said, who do you serve? We are the shadows.
That served the light.
Yeah, so there's just a little bit of that sort of unstoppable force of nature that really isn't, you know, in real life isn't that unstoppable. So it's stuff like that that I actually get sort of like fed up with, you know, the reality of like, yeah, you could show that person getting to be that end result of that kind of figure or that silhouette of that thing, but you got to do it in a certain way for it to seem realistic. The more unrealistic it becomes, the more disconnected people get to it, because the less there is to relate to. And so, yeah, no, it's totally fantastical, because you're not also in the context of this world. This isn't people with superpowers or anything. This is regular people. They have training, but somehow, even just when they're tiny, they can still beat the shit out of a ton of bigger guys than her. Like, okay, like you're stretching the bounds of reality here. It's a fictional story, but it's still set in reality, and you're stretching it. Now, let's have a look at. I haven't actually looked at. I think the trailer for this has come out. Ghost of Yotei. I think the trailer has come out for it. Announced trailer. Okay, so what does that show? Let's have a look. Also, as well, 245,000 likes and 14,000 dislikes. So it hasn't it's gotten a lot of dislikes on it, but it hasn't overwhelmed the likes yet. Some of these other games that we look at that, I didn't actually pay attention to it. Assassin's Creed Shadows video. How many likes v dislikes has it got? Yeah, see, 297,000 likes, 581,000 dislikes. So it can still get there, but like that one's got almost double the dislikes there is to the likes. So that one's, people are really hating on that. This one hasn't even got 10% of the dislikes of what its likes are yet. But this has only just come out as well. It could build to it. You never know. Oh, it's in black and white. I think there's a black and white mode you can play. I think there's a black and white mode you can play the first game in. It's in color, I think, by default, the game, but you can choose to play it in black and white if you want. Because it's all based on Akira Kurosawa films, the style of it. And lots of his films were in black and white. Not all of them, but like a bunch of them.
Edge of Japan. People come north to disappear.
The Mount Yotei 1603, which apparently they didn't call it that back then. So if we look up, let's ask ChatGPT, because the AI never lies. It's always tells us the truth. What was the name of Mount Yotei in the year 1603? Mount Yotei, located in Hokkaido, Japan, was historically known as Izo Fuji due to its resemblance to Mount Fuji. The term Izo referred to the old name for Hokkaido and the surrounding northern territories during the Edo period, which began in 1603. So in 1603, Mount Yotei was likely called Izo Fuji. What was Yotei called before the year 1603? by its Ainu name, Makari Napuri. The Ainu are the indigenous people of Hokkaido, and Napuri means mountain in the Ainu language. Makari means to the region around the mountain. So the name Makari Napuri can be translated as mountain of Makari. This Ainu name was in use before the Japanese influence and the renaming of the mountain to Izo Fuji during the Edo period. So even still, there's this one name of Makari Napuri, and then it became Izo Fuji, literally, I think, in the year 1603, it's saying. Neither of those names are Yotei. Or I think it's Yotei something else, but even just Yotei, like calling it Mount Yotei, it's still not even called that. So that's a big thing of contention I could actually understand. Like, it's not even the right name, dickhead, you know, like for what it would be at the time. It's the modern name.
But you...
I don't think that's necessarily what most of the people are getting upset about. I think it's one of the angles that people are getting upset about it over, but I don't think it's the big bone of contention. It's the voiceover actress.
You are hunting.
Oh. That looks very cool. The teeth and the blood on it.
And now, every Ronin here is after you. Still think you're the hunter?
Mask on. A mask and a damaged hat. So you could see her eye through it for that camera shot. The thing is, though, is that they always have to keep it in context of like, this character is an exception. This character, like the same with Yasuke, he's an exception. So it's not like, oh, there's lots of black samurai and this, that, and the other. It's like, no, he's an exception. And that he existed, but he's an exception. This character could exist, but they're an exception. They're not the normal. And then it's the thing that they start doing. That everyone can be whatever samurai they want, or people in wheelchairs that are samurai. It's like, whoa, what's going on? Like, no, you're trying to make things that are an exception the normal, but that's not the case. And as long as they always keep it grounded within that context, it actually lends to the story, like the depth of what the story you can tell is. And it's also actually keeps it realistic, which thus makes people connect with it more and actually respect it more and like it more. That motherfucker got antlers on. That cunt's got antlers on his helmet. What's that about? You fucking moose samurai. What's this wall? About to die, maybe. That's what's going to go on. Why did that wolf stop going for her and go for something that seems much farther away? Okay. See, in those things, I'm not seeing anything that's especially woke, just in the trailers. There's certain things around them, adjacent to them. They are exceptions to the rule of the norm of what was that society was like or that place was like at that time. But I'm not seeing anything that's totally just, whoa, you're fucking totally blowing the thing. So I can understand where people are coming from in terms of like being critical of it, but it's what you're being critical of it and so on and so forth that I think is the, hang on, like they're not really breaking the rules of that as much as you're saying they are, or that thing, this, that, the others. But I get it. I do get it. So, yeah. But, yeah, I think I'm going to leave the stream there for that. I actually liked it, having to talk about that for a while. I feel like that was quite a good little concise thing there, talking about those subjects. So, yeah, if you like the video, hit the thumbs up. If you didn't like it, obviously hit the opposite thing. And, if you feel like it, which people often do, tell me what you didn't like about it, and I'll see what I can do to be better. I always appreciate, criticism. That's actually just you trying to be like in good faith of like, hey, I think you can improve on this or that or the other. If you're just being a derogatory dickhead, I'll just fuck you, whatever. But, actual criticism, hey, you did this, maybe you do this, that, or the other, whatever. Anyway, so, yeah, I'm also on X. You can follow me there at JD1989AD. I'm on Rumble, as you see, as you're watching me right now live. If you catch this video later, you'll see that I'm also on YouTube. You might watch it on there, where I'm at JDarklighter1989. So you can follow me at a bunch of different places where you'll see content like this, me talking about movies or video games. You'll see me on YouTube, especially live streaming video games. You'll see me on X just commenting on things about video games, movies, political stuff, just calling out the bullshit in the world and just sort of, trying to have fun while you do it. But that is it for now, guys. I will leave you all until next time. Catch us later.